Hey print people, it's Ann Schaefer for Platemark. Welcome to Series 2, A History of Western Prints. Today, Tru and I are going to talk about the British artist and satirist, James Gillray. It is a long one, I apologize about that, but he's fascinating and presages people like Goya and looks back to people like Callot. So he's right in the mix, and I think you will get a lot out of it. All of the images that Tru talks about are over in the show notes at platemarkpodcast.com. I think that might be it. Let's get rolling. Hey, Tru.
Well, hi, Ann. How are you?
Hey,
no, I've just been sitting here waiting for you to say,
we're going.
Hi, Ann. How are you?
I'm well. So we're back with some history of prints for y'all. And before we even say the name of the person who's the subject today, we should do our thing, right?
What's our thing, Ann?
The positionality statement.
What position are you in?
I am sitting in your house, the Purple Crayon Press.
Yeehaw.
Yes, I identify as a cishet white woman, and I use the pronouns she, her.
And I identify as a gay white trans man, and I use the pronouns he, him.
Sweet.
And aren't we on the Piscataway Conoay lands?
That's true. We record in Baltimore, Maryland, the land of the Piscataway Conoay people.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's a good thing, too. Speaking of which, all of knowing the lands and knowing the names and labels of things, all very important. Don't you think that's kind of an extension of this romp we've been doing through the Enlightenment?
Well, because of colonialism and empire and expansionism, yes, I suppose so.
Yes, indeed. We're going to continue our little romp through the 18th century, which in art historical terms, Anna and I had sort of thought of as flyover country.
But no more.
My God, no.
It's incredible.
Absolutely. And boy, oh boy, did I get caught going down some little rabbit holes today. And they're not very little. These rabbit holes were big damn holes that should have been discovered a whole lot sooner.
Well, and apologies to all our 18th century scholar friends and colleagues.
Well, I know that they're... So all three of you. Sorry. Well, we don't know that many hardcore. Do we know that many? Hi, History of Print folk. Here we are. We're going to discuss more that is taking place in the 18th century. The Enlightenment, which really starts percolating at the end of the 17th century and into the 18th century. The last time we talked, we were talking about William Hogarth.
We were.
And actually, he was a perfect example of the Enlightenment, and he was the first of what one would call one of the great cartoonists, perhaps.
Yes.
Well, today we are going to talk about James Gillray. That's Gill with two L's, Gillray, who was born in 1756 and he died in 1815. And he's such a fascinating guy. He's so sidelined, it's not even fair. What we're doing is we're going through the heyday of great humor in printmaking, which is unusual because it hadn't existed before, if you will, because, this all boils down to the fact that British censorship had been repealed in 1695, which added to this culture of being able to mock the world. And it was Hogarth who had really started that. And we had talked in our prior episodes about Hogarth's Harlot's Progress, which was a cycle of 6 prints that he published in 1732, and his Rake's Progress in 1735. And then he got peeved and wasn't going to engrave anymore because his copyright, well, there was no really such thing as copyright, and he got tired of people stealing his stuff. And finally, once he was one of the key players in getting the copyright law passed in England, he then published Marriage a la Mode, which is probably the most famous of his cycles. The thing to remember about William Hogarth was that he was a painter who had been trained as an engraver, but he really was a painter, as in an oil painter. And it was an aspiring member of the Royal Academy and whatnot. Yet he was an engraver. And I want us to keep in mind that he was an engraver, and I want us to remember that engraving tends to involve a slightly higher realm in terms of, for one thing, engraving is useful as what is it?
Engraving had been traditionally used for reproductive purposes.
Right. And Hogarth was actually reproducing his own paintings in the Harlot's Progress, the Rake's Progress, and Marriage a la Mode.
Still a reproductive engraving, even though he's copying his own work.
Exactly. And wanting to have the control over the publication of those things was one of the things that he was really keen about. And I wanted for you to be aware of the fact that in the 18th century, people will often say that there were two really great influential cartoonists. One was William Hogarth, and one was James Gillray. And the thing is that Hogarth's works were always an inspiration to Gillray. And as it would say in some sources, Hogarth's works were the delight and study of his early years. You can really actually see that Gillray would emulate Hogarth's mode of working, but Hogarth had essentially invented all of that. I think we forget that none of this stuff existed before these innovators, and that Hogarth had figured out the concept of the serial soap opera, if you will, of the mores of today. Well, here comes Gillray along half a century later.
I was going to say, it's much later, isn't it?
Yeah, he is, because Hogarth had died by 1764, and James Gillray was, all of 8 years old when that happened. But to know that Hogarth's reach was far enough to have interested Gillray, I think, is really quite important.
But it makes sense, right? Because Hogarth's series, the cycles, were so popular.
They were incredibly popular.
And there were all those copies floating around before the copyright situation was solved.
Indeed. So the thing we got to remember about Gillray is that he's active, I think we can say that he's really flourishing between 1792 and I'd say 1809 max, because his eyesight really started to dim about 1806, and he makes his last print in 1809, and he essentially goes mad, he goes insane, and is dead at the age of 58 in 1815.
Did he kill himself?
It was an attempt.
Oh.
We'll get to that later.
Okay, sorry.
But in the meantime, let's talk about when he's doing great. As we can see in this marvelous portrait, which was done posthumously. However, he looks really good in this portrait.
He looks a little haunted, but...
Well, only because that is a self-portrait that he had created that was then engraved. It was engraved in mezzotint engraving. It's misstated, but it's a mezzotint after Gillray's self-portrait, which was done in 1819 by Charles Turner. No relationship to.
But Turner's reproductive engraver.
Okay,
Do we think? Is that the Charles Turner?
I think so, yeah.
Probably.
Because it's mezzotint, yeah.
Yeah.
Poor Charles. Man, the stuff he had to put up with.
What a bad last name to get.
And tell him a little bit about this haunted but lovely portrait.
Well, it's in a tondo. Well, actually, it's an oval. It's not a tondo.
No, it's an oval tondo.
Okay. Isn't a tondo round?
Yeah, this is roundish. It certainly isn't
roundish.
A rhombus.
And he's wearing a kind of a lovely burgundy coat, and the textures of the velvet are quite evident, nicely done. And he's not wearing a wig. So are we past wigs at this point? That's
a very good point. In a way, I think he is part of that, the cult of the natural.
Right.
Because this is an artist who became, he was a printmaker caricaturist of the highest order. And his career could be divided into two parts. Basically, you could say that he was there would be those that would say he's the father of the political cartoon, or the first great real political satirist. And then there were also his social satires. And so, he's always going to be poking holes in things like the wigs and the ridiculous clothing of the day. And so that was a really good point you made there, because he's not, when we looked at a portrait of Hogarth, he was wearing a wig. And in this case, some 50 years later, the other thing I wanted to point out to you, though, is, as I said, was Hogarth was a painter who then was trained as an engraver, but also engraved his own work. Gillray, that poor guy, he was trained as an engraver of letters, but all of his great caricatures, all of his great images that he put out there were etchings, sometimes with a little bit of aquatint and sometimes a little bit of stippling. They were etching. They were not engravings.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the other thing was that I don't think I've ever seen a hand-colored Hogarth. Doesn't mean that they don't exist. But Gillray, you can tell that was something he was banking on. Because a hand-colored print would obviously pull more money than a black and white one. And so I want for you to think about this. The fact that Gillray was making these etchings, I want you to think of Callot, who had gone and created the shop so that he could make these etchings that would appear as engravings. And in that regard, we have Gillray basically doing what my dad would say is, honey doll, let the chemicals do the work.
Right.
Because when I was little and I was scrub, he'd say, just let the chemicals, you don't have to bully it, you don't have to muscle it, Let the chemicals do the work. The acid will do the work.
All right.
And so thinking of that, I want for you to realize that he's already anticipating. I don't think Albrecht Dürer would have ever wanted his stuff to be hand-colored, but here we have Gillray who
Susan, when I interviewed Susan Dackerman about that, I did ask her about the coloring and whether or not he would approve. And her theory was, and correct me if I'm wrong, people, because it's been a while since I listened, but my recollection is that Susan said that because he was a master of marketing, he would have understood this piece of the market.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think he would have enjoyed it.
He didn't love the opaqueness. He wanted the lines to show through, for sure.
Absolutely.
Right. But I think that
it's part of the market, but but his work absolutely stands on its own. And there are other authors who would have said he would have blanched at that. But again, the customer is always right. But think of that. He was also introducing something to the market that hadn't existed before, as was Hogarth and as was Gillray. So those kinds of things I want us to keep in mind. And as we move forward, you're going to continue to ask me tons of questions because there were a bunch of questions I ended up wanting to ask myself. And there's only but so many hours in the day. But things to know. Let's see. He was born in Chelsea, London. His dad was a soldier. His dad had lost an arm in the Battle of Fontenay and was then an inmate and later what they would call an outdoor pensioner at the Chelsea Hospital.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. So his dad was essentially an injured guy who was living...
A vet?
Yeah. With one arm, who was living as a pensioner who was being paid for. That's a 19th century thought. It's not like being a part of a poor farm.
But it's a state-supported home for vets. But what does the outdoor part mean?
Well, that's part that you should look up.
Oh, okay.
But it says, meaning he's not an inmate. He's an outdoor pensioner. Okay. So he's in connection with this hospital.
Okay.
And it's not to say that I've done vast reading on the biography of Gillray, but it's not one of those things that meant that he had to go work when he was a tiny lad or anything like that. But I wanted for you to understand that his dad was a vet, that Gillray had become trained as a letter engraver. Now, remembering also that engravings, oftentimes the artwork is done by the artist, Hogarth or whomever, and think about it, the addresses of all of those. What's the address, Ann?
The address is the strip at the bottom that usually tells you the title and some other things.
Such as?
Usually it has the artist, the after artist, and the engraver person. And then it'll have who was the publisher.
Correct.
And sometimes it'll have like under the aegis of the king
or cum privilege, copyright, blah, blah, blah. And those guys, those letter engravers, think about the stuff we see usually that's all florid, beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's to be a letter engraver, right. That's some pretty fussy stuff. And so the thing, I already can tell, looking at the later part of this gentleman's career, that he was going to get bored with it. Some sources would say, and it's always fun to see how people write about that he found it irksome. And I became enamored of that. And for a while, Gillray also worked as a kind of a strolling performer, like part of a little performing troupe as he was trying to get his way in the world under him.
Funny.
Eventually, he enrolled at the Royal Academy for some lessons, and he supported himself by engraving. It's entirely possible, like images that he was selling it. And one of the things that's also happening at this time is oftentimes there were other, slightly inflammatory things, ribald things that might be published without the artist's name, maybe even without an address. And it's entirely possible that there were things that he was publishing during these years that he did not sign. That's entirely common. For instance, in Lyndon Hult's book, there's a really evocative, air quotes, cartoon of someone getting ready to use the guillotine on somebody else. And it's a very political cartoon. And remembering that the guillotine was a newly introduced tool in the more humane way of executing people. That wasn't, think about it. You're not going to put your name on it. Even if we were to think about de Beaucourt's Promenade Publique that was published in 1792, there are still parts, the publisher's not on there. There are parts of that are a little too dicey. And this is one of the things we have to keep in mind. It's also fun to read how the Brits are going to write about Gillray a lot because obviously he's a Brit. One of my favorite little quotes, quote, Gillray's wit and humor, knowledge of life, fertility of resource, keen sense of the ludicrous, and beauty of execution at once gave him first place amongst the caricaturists. But the other thing that we should be aware of is that Gillray was well educated, and his sources, being erudite, students at Micah, like, why do I have to take this? Why do I have to take that? Well, knowledge is power. Like Hogarth, Gillray could use inspiration from the Bible or from Shakespeare or from Milton and wrap those kinds of references into these contemporaneous topics that he was working with, which makes them all the more interesting. One way to find out about that is that there are, I would almost say countless little videos on YouTube created by various Gillray scholars on just single prints by Gillray.
What?
Well, if you remember how incredibly dense all of the iconography was in a Hogarth print, well, it's the same way in a Gillray. They're much more fluidly drawn, but there's all kinds of little nuggets all the way through there. Because what each of these prints is going to do is these scholars can dissect for you all these myriad commercial and economic and material and environmental realities that people were living with at that time that there's absolutely no way we would understand now, but they are so on point for their day. And rather than dismiss it, I think that we start to realize that history is indeed repeating itself. One of the things that we need to keep in mind is really, again, with the censorship laws that had been revoked, there was a certain kind of freedom, and Gillray as an artist was incredibly brave. Really brave, if you think about it. He attacked King George III. He attacked Napoleon. He attacked a string of British prime ministers, generals, royal family, Edmund Burke, the great theorist on art history. He rebuked societal forces. He made fun of actors and actresses. Nobody was immune. But the thing that I think is really impressive about him is that he would not attack the weak. He only attacked the strong in terms of the class structure. No matter what, Trump would have hated him. Completely. And you'll see why, because I couldn't stop myself. I had to pick a few things that would point that out. So, for instance, just by the sheer power of his caricature, that is, using an exaggeration of various features and emotions, which, by the way, was also the beginning of an Enlightenment thought, because there were some theorists leading up to this, like Charles Le Brun and then Lavater, who had published a whole treatise on the passions of the emotions and whatnot. Artists are really drawing from the possibilities of that and the concept that the quality of a human being is based on the beauty of their countenance. If you got an ugly face, you got an ugly soul. So being able to extract, in that regard, Gillray was a caricaturist. Hogarth would create settings for these things to take place in, but he wouldn't make the kinds of facial types, the things that Gillray will be doing, as you'll see. But
that's where Hogarth kind of falls flat for me because, they are characters in the story, but knowing how far one can push the exaggerated nose or whatever else to imbue the character with characteristics.
Right.
Like, I feel like that's sort of missing in Hogarth.
That's because we have 300 years to 250 years to look back and go,
exactly.
Why weren't you doing that? Because he was inventing the fact that you could do such a thing.
Right.
Gillray's inventing the fact, because I always use Daumier as the big inventor, let's say of the French caricature. And it's Gillray who's the inventor of the British one. Now, Rowlandson and Cruikshank are the two other guys in that little constellation of humor guides, but Gillray's big enough for one night because I don't want to make Anne get all long and sleepy looking. But for instance, the concept of the caricature, I think we all think of Napoleon as a little bitty guy. That all comes from Gillray.
What?
Gillray drew him tiny. But the fact of the matter is that Napoleon was actually 5'7", which was absolutely average for any French or British guy at the time. And he referred to him as Little Boney. So, in much the same way that, our concept of, we all think that Napoleon was just some little bitty guy. Just like we all think that Santa Claus is a right jolly old elf with a big beard and a blah, blah, blah. That's all because of the cartoons that Thomas Nast was drawing. He was an American illustrator who was working as a Civil War cartoonist. He drew his first images of Santa as a way to buoy the spirits of the troops. But he kept drawing those into the 1880s, and that is what our idea of Santa is. It's from one guy that was drawing, in 1863. For 20 years, he draws this thing. It's like, okay, that's what that looks like. That's okay. That's why Napoleon is a little bitty guy, is because that was, And so one of the things, oh man, you have no idea how hard I fought this impulse. One of the neatest new books that's out there is Tim Clayton's James Gillray, A Revolution in Satire, which is actually, if you think about when Gillray is working, really smart. It was published in 2022, and it's just sitting in my Amazon shopping cart. But of course, it's Amazon, so I won't buy it.
That's the newest book?
That's the book that I wanted you to know that exists, because it's in that book and in many other places, but mostly in this, things that we'll find out that James Gillray actually supported the American Revolution.
What?
Yeah. And he hated the French.
Yeah.
Which, well, he's English. But one of the other things that's really interesting was that
Wait, he hates the French aristocracy, or he hates the
French.
revolution? Doesn't matter.
He hates the French.
Throughout the revolution and beyond.
He hates the French.
Okay.
They're French.
Okay.
They're skinny, by the way, and you'll see that he mocks that too.
Because they're all starving.
Well, there could be that. But the other thing to keep in mind that was really lovely from one of the things that Tim Clayton was talking about was 1792 was one of these big years. Like if you could choose a year and pick it all apart, 1792 he would give to Gillray. If you could pick any, like a year that was incredibly significant to focus on, for instance, Ann and I might choose, what year? 1913?
1913 would be good.
Really great because of what?
It's the Armory Show in New York, and it's the transfer of the center of the art world from Paris to New York.
Yep, and you've got the things that is going on with Stravinsky and the Ballet Russe, and you've got the start of the Mexican Revolution's going on, all of these kinds of things. You might say 1863, which is, the Salon de Refusé, or you've got, all just magnificent groups of things going on. If you could pick a year, Tim Clayton would say 1792 could be that year. 1792, we're saying. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what's going on then, Ann?
The French Revolution.
So, basically you could bracket the French Revolution from essentially 1789 to 1799 and think about the fact that the Reign of Terror, imagine what that is. The Reign of Terror, shunk, off with their head, 1793 to 1794, and just how dense that would be. And then the concept of, what did they do during the Reign of Terror, Miss Ann?
I mean, aside from chopping everyone's heads off?
Yeah.
Well,
and I mean, how many is everyone? Have we thought about that?
Oh, it's thousands.
Yeah, it was actually somewhere between 17,000 and 40,000 in Paris.
Right.
Let's just try that in Washington these days.
Yeah, right.
And see how that would go. And it's, again, people that are revolting and wanting to get their own rights and so on and so forth.
Well, and the sides go back and forth, and they're killing people so that they can't rise up. Like it's preemptive killing. Like it's really bloody.
Mm-hmm. It's really quite dreadful. And also, the suppression of the press in France is very strong. But, Gillray will take on things like the madness of King George, and he will mock King George and his peculiar, and there literally was the King's speech. As King George was going nuts, he would perseverate, and Gillray will mock that in the cartoons that he comes up with.
Oh,
the other things to think about is that even during Gilray's life, the Peninsular War with Spain is going on. So you've got, between starting in 1808, the French Emperor, Little Boney, Little Nappy, is trying to seize control of Spain, and he installs his brother Joseph Bonaparte, and that leads to the hideous war, 1808 to 1814. And I want for you to think about the fact that is the very same war that Goya is making his Disasters of War, 82 prints of. Now think about the fact that Goya is making these 82 prints, but those are all packed away in a trunk. They're not unpacked until 1863. First time they're published is in 1863. But here's Gillray able to do such things. And that's, really something to consider. And so when you think about the fact that, Spain is the most repressive monarchy on the planet, and England is like people, it's fair play. So I want us to keep that in mind. And I also want to think about that there were so many print shops in 18th century England. And somebody that you need to know about is Hannah Humphrey, who had her own print shop. And she was Gillray's publisher and print seller. And she had a series of 4 different shops in increasingly better locations across the decades in London. And here's the thing. It's interesting to see how they say in various sources whether, well, they had a professional relationship and she was going to be Gillray's publisher and possibly more than just that. Maybe it was a partnership. And then another place that says that Gillray was about to propose to her a couple times and he went, it's going so well. Why would we want to trouble it with that?
No. Oh,
yeah. But think about this, because they lived in the same building. He lived either upstairs or they cohabitated. But the thing is that if she's his publisher, that means that he retains control of his own plates.
Yes.
And he also retains his copyright, because to retain the copyright, you have to put your name, the date, and the address on the print of where it's being published. And that means that Hannah Humphrey's name is at the foot of all of his prints, which I think is really quite wonderful. So I'm actually showing a later print because I think it's hilarious. All right, so here is a print called Very Slippy Weather. And this is a Gillray print, and it actually, you can see that in the top right corner it says Humphrey. It's the print shop of Hannah Humphreys, his publisher. And just you are my observer that has walked up, let's say, on the street, and you're seeing what's going on and what's happening in the window of this print shop.
Well, it's a window that is mullioned, and each of the little squares of the separated glass has a print in it so that you can't really see into the store except for through the door. And there is a group of people gathered around, almost like you would see in a movie about the 50s where everyone's watching the TVs in the windows of the Woolworth or whatever.
Very good, very good. And you notice their headwear.
Oh, yeah.
Each of them are of different classes.
Yes, you got a big mix here. We got a tricorn and something not very
You got a worker
exciting,
and a middle class guy. And
woman with a fascinator. And
exactly.
A top hat.
Yeah. So and then all of these folks are looking in the print shop window, and then there's even
that's not a fascinator. That's a naval hat with a plume.
Okay.
Because look at his tail. He's got tails here.
No, see, now that made you look a little longer, didn't it?
It did. Sorry,
wait. I forgot we could do that too.
Oh, hey, we're zooming in. Yeah. He's got a sword.
Yes, he does. So he's naval. And
there's no women here.
No. And I think that's also interesting because
Hannah Humphrey.
Exactly.
Right.
And then we also have these 2 preachers in here who are discussing, what is it? Something about the Catholics and how they're going to be given new rights in England. But all right, so we're watching people look in the window of the print shop, but the title of the print is what?
Very Slippy Weather.
And why do you suppose it's called that?
Well, there's a gentleman in the foreground who has slipped on the cobblestones and has landed on his tuchus, making his hat and wig pop off his bald head.
Mm-hmm. And so we have the idea that nature and humankind are still somewhat at odds. And he's playing these various games, and he's also really letting us see this glimpse of essentially what so many print shops were like in the 18th century. Or was he? So there were lots and lots of print shops as we talk, and there's this incredible freedom of the press. And think about the fact that, as Ann is describing, these print shops were the visual entertainment for all classes because they're visible from the street. And, thinking about the fact this golden age of graphic satire, basically from 1780 to 1810, there's one source that would say, well, this is a print that was produced by the publisher. It says Hannah Humphrey's shop, so it's just a piece of fluff.
Oh, just an ad?
Yeah. And then there's this passage that I want to share with you by Amanda Flynn, and she writes, print shops really did draw every eye in the manner in the 18th century and early 19th century. Apart from the cheap woodcuts and chapbooks and broadsides and the odd painted signboard, there was very little accessible imagery in day-to-day life. The affluent might attend art exhibitions or possess their own collections, but the print shop window was free to crowds of all ranks. It effectively doubled as a picture gallery, showcasing the latest portraits, caricatures of fashionable follies, and biting satires for an audience hungry for the magic of the visual. One tourist to London observed that outside the most popular shops, the, quote, enthusiasm is indescribable when the next drawing appears. It is a veritable madness. You have to make your way through the crowd with your fists. Outside this particular shop, a dandy with a monocle, a footman, an army officer, an errand boy, and a coachman jostle for best position, whilst inside 2 clergymen pore over an impression titled Catholic Emancipation. But thinking about the fact, this is like, the run on the concert stage. And it's something I try to instill in my art history students all the time. Where, peasant, do you see artwork? You see it, what? On signs and maybe at church. Well, the print shops, imagine what that was like. And there were so many of them. I mean, that's your new TV at night, right? That's pretty exciting stuff. And then to be someone as savvy as Gillray, to be able to, come up with the nugget that's going to get people interested and not get yourself in trouble, that's a big darn dealio. I wanted to share with you a couple of things that I find absolutely adorable. For instance, what is it that's going to intrigue the public? This is a later print, but I needed to share this with you. Being able to make caricatures of things that Gillray would do. Well, the line was, let's see, what is it? Caricatures are cheap, but Gillray worked very hard. At least 650 are for sure his. There are those that would say there are as many as 1,000 that are attributed to him, and some think he authored as many as 1,600 to 1,700 of these kinds of images.
We don't know because he didn't sign them for his own safety.
If that's, but all of the ones that say Hannah Humphreys, that they're solid. So we have hundreds of these. I wanted to remind you also, Ann, that we have hundreds of these in volumes, 9 volumes down at the George Peabody Library.
Oh, hey.
And here's the other thing that I think people forget. Prints are sometimes just used in other sense. Now, twice now I've bought things because they were selling the frame. Remember that mezzotint of infant, infant Joshua? It was a mezzotint after Sir Joshua Reynolds. And then I actually ended up with a Gillray.
Oh.
Quite by accident.
I've forgotten that.
Because I was working as an art handler and this woman was like, oh, just take it, get it out of here. It was some wacky old frame and it had these, gewgaws and knickknacks on it. And I'm looking at this and I was like, what? This looks strange. And I realized that's an etching. And it's been cut down to fit into this frame. And so then they took the text, which is clearly this guy's handwriting, and glued it on there. And I'm just, amazed that I took it down to the George Peabody Library to say, hey, can we match it? By God, there it was in one of those 9 volumes. That there was a whole cycle on James Gillray's caricatures that were printed between 1818 and 1820. After he died, and notice that it's his caricatures. It's not his political satires, but it's all the ones dealing with satires on society.
Okay.
Not but the fact is that they're there. And I did my research, but I could walk into my local, I didn't have a freaking computer. I walked into my George Peabody Library and we flopped open a volume from 1820, and by golly, there's the print that I got for nothing. Now, they're a little bit more expensive, but...
I don't think the market for Gillray is overrunneth.
Well, I'll have something on that.
Okay.
I have something for you on that as well. So the political satires also, they circulated, of course, in Britain, but they also circulated all throughout Europe and abroad. And one author said that Gillray was very slippery, that he would sell to any side, even though he hated the French. He's a businessman, right? So he's going to sell to any. And his social satire caricatures, those are a big hit. One is a little bit of both, and I had to share this with you. I couldn't not. This is the Titty Doll, the great French gingerbread baker drawing out a new batch of kings, his man-hopping tally mixing up dough from 1806. One of the reasons I've chosen the images for tonight is because basically all of them have to do with exactly what's going on right now. So here we have, who is Lil Boney, right? Mm-hmm. And what's he doing? He's pulling out of the oven. What is he pulling out?
He's got a peel coming out of the oven with little figurines on it that are representing
They're little ginger kings.
Oh, little gingerbread men.
Little gingerbread kings, yes. And the thing is that this is basically Gilray's prophetic image of Napoleon as a baker, feverishly creating gingerbread monarchs. And that really expressed that British anxiety that he was taking over all of continental Europe and he was going to install all of his cronies in all of those important positions. I wonder why that seems so vaguely familiar. And how all of the former are being pushed, all of the other monarchs that he's displacing, former administrations, are being pushed into the ash bin. It's really quite an image of today, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
And so, really, it's absolutely a nexus of its time. And it really says a lot to us about what's happening in these United States as we speak. Now, Gilray had started as early as 1779. One of the things I enjoy doing is looking what an artist's work looks like early on versus later on. And what did we say? He was born in 1756, yeah? So here's one from 1779. It's an etching. They're all etchings. 1779, so that makes him what, 23? And what's it called, Ann?
The Whore's Last Shift.
What do you see, Ann?
Well, it's a woman with a really tall head.
Well, yeah, because she's a whore.
Because she's a whore with lots of plumes and things. And
quite the hat and quite the leg wear, yeah?
Yeah, and she's naked except for her stockings and the hat situation. And it looks like she's gathering her clothes, or I'm not sure what that...
It's her last shift, so she's probably just finishing up
organizing,
for the day, maybe getting herself cleaned
washing of her little ablutions.
And then there's some kind of tomcat, looking in the window, looking at her bum. I just want you to compare Gilray's drawing when he's 23 to when he's 43.
Yeah, the background is crosshatched in a pretty rough way. I mean, it adds to the kind of roughness of her lifestyle, right? But it's a little rough. Her proportions are weird. Her face is really tiny compared to the rest of her. She's sort of Madonna of the long neck at this point. Well, actually, she looks like a man.
Kind of, yeah, actually. And this tomcat's going, whoa!
And the tomcat is
really astonished by what she's... But look how stiff and strange and awkward that figure is. It's really tight, precise drawing, kind of like a beginning drawing student, right?
Yeah, and her lower legs are terrible.
You're right about that. Well, terrible. Let's be kind. Maybe it's they're teeny, right? Indeed. So she's, but it's the whore's. Think about that title, The Whore's Last Shift.
Right.
Okay, that's not too. But by the time he's drawing, some 20 years later, here I'm showing you the sandwich carrots, dainty sandwich carrots from December of 1796, and what you'll see is a completely different kind of drawing. And what do you sense about his marks?
Well, it looks like he's got better control of. He must be using some aqua.
Pardon me? It could be. It does look like there could be aquatint in it. I mean, it's just beautifully hand colored.
Yeah.
But also,
he's got a much better grasp on character.
Just the fluidity of his line. You notice how here it's like sketchy, sketchy, sketch, 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 sketch. You know how students will start their drawings going, drawing a line. And you see here how each of the lines is just free to wander around and do that thing. Yeah. It's as though he's been channeling the beauty of line that Hogarth was predicting that one must have in his, in his writing on the beauty of that. Right. But also just noticing how he's handling this space, and we're outdoors. And we see a young woman who's pushing some kind of a cart, and there's an old guy behind her. And they're also, what I wanted you to notice is that it's very similar to like the print shop. It's a bookstore with all kinds of books in the windows. Now, one is, there's a whore. It's her last shift. Okay, I'm making a picture of such a thing. Oh my goodness, right? But here we have this much deeper, much more broadly ribbled kind of an image. But here's the thing. This image of the sandwich carrots, all of these, it's a riff on a cycle of paintings that have been done by Francis Wheatley and presented at the Royal Academy. In 1792 to 1794. And it was a series that was called The Cries of London. And it was based on 4 different, the mackerel sellers, or the sandwich sellers, or the produce sellers.
Dignity of the hardworking.
Exactly right. The dignity of the hardworking. And, and what do they look like? Lovely little genre paintings,
They
yes?
do,
That
yeah.
kind of elevate the working poor,
Mm-hmm.
yeah? Well, there's much to be said about this sandwiches, carrots, and so on. And I wanted to share with you, Anne's going to be sure to include this, but
Apparently, there's a james-gillray.org, which a website I have not explored, but you have poked around in.
the amazing thing is how many Gillray websites there are.
Yeah.
Because he's a national treasure. This one is, the one I'm referring to here is, I believe, by James Gillray.
Okay.
But I wanted to share with you a couple of these passages. Ever alert to the proceedings of the Royal Academy and to popular trends in the art world, Gillray's dainty sandwich carrots is, I believe, says James Gillray, Gillray's complex response to Wheatley's series. In keeping with many of Wheatley's cries and the growing appetite for prints of London topography, Gillray's sandwich carrots is a realistic depiction of a specific locale, the corner of Little Maddox Street and New Bond Street, within an easy walking distance of Hannah Humphrey's print shop, where there was indeed a bookseller by the name of Falder. The title of Gillray's print clearly mimics the sing-song repetition of the vendor's cries in Wheatley's titles. And again, like most of the examples in Wheatley's series, the focus is upon an interaction between the street vendor and a potential customer. However, things change, because what we also have here is that things get a little bit more complicated, because what we see is actually a caricature of John Montague, the 5th Earl of Sandwich, who was a Tory politician and served as master of the Buckhounds from 1783 to 1806. His father, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, was a notorious libertine and member of the Order of St. Francis, later known, so on. The guy was a filthy kind of a, child molester kind of a guy. And so this son is a chip off the old block. It's all starting to sound like Epstein files to me. So basically, there are all kinds of little nuggets that Gillray has now established. For instance, the older man has his hand in his pocket. Notice his hand in his right pocket. Sometimes there are fingers that are sticking out of that pocket. He's basically hassling this young lady and kind of wanting to have some of her sandwiches. And there's a great deal of innuendo.
For a burger.
Exactly. He really wants to get at her tasty carrots and her dainty sandwich. And he is really quite ribald about it. So let's see. Gillray is not so naive. The Earl's leering gaze, his outstretched left hand, which seems rather to be grabbing the young woman's apron rather than putting money in her pocket, both point to the sexually charged nature of this encounter, an old buckhound about to get his dough. The point is reinforced by the right hand of the Earl inserted in his pocket, a frequent suggestion in Gillray of sexual stimulation. But in an otherwise scrupulously accurate depiction of the Earl and his environment, Gillray has unaccountably blundered in his drawing of the Earl's right hand, which is anatomically impossible fingers outside his pants. Or has he? So, it's a dirty old guy having his way. And the thing to realize is that that's a well-done etching. And these are large prints. They're at least 11 by 14 inches. And there's a market for it.
Yeah. This is it's basically just a send-up of one of the landed gentry because he's a dirty old man. But it's interesting to go after characters just because of, I'm not forgiving him for being a dirty old man, but it's fascinating that seems like a minor offense compared to other things that could be featured.
Well, the fact that he's actually it's a Me Too moment.
Yeah.
If you think about it. Look at how beautiful this young lady is, and she's trying to just
ignore him.
Yeah. Wow. His fingers are really out those pants.
Yeah.
That's what you all need a Zoom screen for. Yes, what shall we say, rewards scrutiny, does it, Ann?
Yes.
Gillray would do such things with his social satires. And it's interesting also to realize that many of the things I've shown you have been hand-colored. And I'm now going to go through a cycle of things that are more or less in chron order. And again, I'm showing you an early image. This one's called The American Rattlesnake, and it was done in 1782. And it basically asks you to see how the French are holding their troops and how the Native Americans are doing their job. And there's this new thing called the speech bubble.
Oh.
And you notice that think about the words that are coming out of the mouths, these are being etched by a guy who had to specialize, think about it, in engraved lettering. So, if you think Comic Sans, that was what people write in our newspapers, I think you have to realize that here's a guy who is having to tread the line between fine art and satire and his training as an engraver and what does speech look like. And think about, for instance, in the medieval era, you would have had banderoles when people are saying things, those fluttering bits of ribbon around people. And you know how he's putting these things together. And here he's actually doing a take on what the American Revolution is doing. But I want you to also notice how kind of in 1782, his drawing is a little stiff, but we're going to watch it flourish in no time at all. There are so many things I had to skip over. They're just shockingly, appallingly interesting, but we can't talk about them all. But I wanted to bring this one to your attention.
Okay.
Because Gillray could be subtle as well as, fairly pointed. And I hear you chuckling, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about what you're seeing here.
Okay, this is a print called Fashionable Contrasts, or The Duchess's Little Shoe Yielding to the Magnitude of the Duke's Foot, 1792.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a close-up of the Duchess's feet, which is revealing that she's lying down, and the Duke's shoes
Are very large.
and they are clearly positioned so that he's lying on top of her.
Mm-hmm. Now, things to keep in mind. She was known for her beautiful small feet, and he was known to be a larger kind of a guy. But it's all about the fashionable footwear. But clearly
not.
They're doing it, right? And there are things to think about this. So one of the things you would ask, like, the market for Gillray can't be that great. Well, think about this. The collection prices have increased on Gillrays since the 1970s. This particular image here, can you see what I have typed for you there?
Yes, I see that.
What does it say?
Jesus.
Ha ha!
This went for more than 10,000 US dollars in 2001. This is a very popular and sought after piece.
Well, fornication usually is kind of,
Right.
But think about, look at the elegance of it.
Yeah, I mean, it took me a second to figure out what was happening.
And then you went, right? And so think about that. We've got $10,000. That was 24 years ago.
That's a lot.
Now, the other thing is that the market for Gillrays is definitely out there. Now, I had mentioned to you that there were those volumes that had been published to 1818 and 19. To 1820. But there was a guy that had published a whole bunch of stuff, posthumous restrikes essentially, in volumes in 1851. So there are a lot of folks that are out there like ripping the pages out of those and selling them and hand coloring them and trying to make a ton of money off of Bones restrike volumes from 1851, just to let you know. And the other thing I'm going to point out to you is that the collection prices have increased since the 1970s. The next bunch of images I'm going to show you are all basically about war and revolution. And I'm going to hazard that has something to do with the zeitgeist of the world, in a time that was, Vietnam War and revolutions such as that. And at this moment, I'm actually showing Anne two different views of the same image, one in black and white and one in color. This is the one that was in Linda Holt's book, and I remembered this is why Gillray stuck in my head from Jump Street. This is such an arresting image. It's called The Zenith of French Glory, the Pinnacle of Liberty.
Yikes.
And so here in black and white, but also in color. I don't know, Anne, which do you prefer? Is that a fair question? Which do you prefer, oxygen or water?
I with this one, there are so many layers going back in space. I feel like the color is helping me navigate it a little better, although I'm not sure it's really doing it justice. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Well, indeed. So, but you can also see the caliber of his drawing. You notice how he's pushing space so well now?
Yeah.
And we could draw a line from before Callot, but certainly I'm feeling a Callot sensibility here in terms of the timed biting and having a very subtle, soft background with, the dome of Paris behind. And then
I'm even getting Lucas van Leyden, the poet Virgil.
Yeah. Oh, good job.
Thank you so much.
Anne gets a high five on that one. That was a very white high five. That was really good. I'm proud of you. Wow.
I've been listening.
Cuckolded. Woohoo. Well, this is slightly worse than being cuckolded.
Yes, for sure.
But I wanted for you to see, because here you can see all the little red Liberty hats here that are all down here across the bottom. And you can also see the address here that it's saying James Gillray and Hannah Humphrey and blah, blah, blah. But I wanted for you to be able to see it in the black and white and color. It's really stark if you think about it. Now take a good hard look and explain to the viewers what you're seeing in the color. I think it's fairly clear here, don't you?
Yeah.
What do you got?
Gosh. Okay, so we're looking out onto a open square where a guillotine is set up in the middle. So this is all during the bloody...
The Reign of Terror, yeah.
Thank you, the Reign of Terror.
1793 is when this one was published.
Okay, but before you get out into the middle of the very crowded square where people are watching the guillotine dude, you have to look past a piece of architecture from which is a metal piece of, I don't even know what you call that,
There's
trim
like a
or something.
signboard. There's like a sign, yeah.
Right, a little sign thing. And from that are hanging 3 priests, looks like. And then seated on top.
Literally hanging as in by the neck.
Like dead. And sitting on the top with his foot on one of the priests is kind of like the fiddler on the roof, a jester.
Kind of a jester, yeah.
Kind of a jester. He's got a violin. He's got no pants on, and his bum is kind of showing. And then beyond them, sort of in the middle ground, there's a nun hanging from another sign.
That. That's pretty harsh, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so this is they're reminding you that during the Revolution, many prints were published that were anonymous. This one is absolutely claimed by Gillray, big time. He's signed it. He's got the full address on it, and keep that in mind. So he drew this print to commemorate the beheading of none other than Louis XVI.
Oh.
Notice the crown is on the guillotine's blade.
Gotcha.
And beneath the title is written, "Religion, justice, loyalty, and all the bugbears of unenlightened minds, farewell." A sans-culotte, a guy with no pants on, without his knee-length pants that were fashionable at the time.
And the sans-culotte were one of the factions.
Right, is perched on a lamppost fiddling.
Yeah.
In basically, that lamppost, the thought is that he's taken a crap into that lamp.
Gotcha.
And he's fiddling like Nero, 1 foot on the hanged body of the bishop. His cap says, what does it say? Ça ira.
Ça ira. It will be fine.
The song of the working class radicals of the French Revolution. Now, this is a good size plate. It's 14 by almost 10 inches. Think about that. It's 14 by 10. He's proud of it. He's making it. Think about how actually brazen that really is.
It's brazen, and the composition is just really stunning.
It is remarkable. I think this is just phenomenal.
It's a tour de force, this one.
And this is the one that Linda Holtz puts in her History of Print in the Western World. So I'm going to read you what she has to say about that. I'm going to make reference to the guillotine, which various kinds had been in starting to be used over hundreds of years, but this was the perfected one that was put into use right during the French Revolution.
Well, at the beginning of the Revolution, they were still hacking people with
and
hatchets.
screwing it up and not getting it right.
And it was not good.
So they wanted
this was supposed to be more humane.
Right. So the instrument was developed to kill quickly and equitably, in the sense that it was applied equally to ordinary citizens, aristocrats, and even royalty. Robespierre himself. And so poor Dr. Guillotin was not the one that invented it, but his name was given to it by the people. The guillotine occupies a central position in Gilray's Zenith of French Glory, hand-colored etching, 1793. The Revolution provided the English artist with a subject for some of his most vehement anti-French statements. And this particular image conveys with a visceral power the horror felt by many Europeans at the terror. Beneath a banner marked "Vive l'égalité," long live equality, the guillotine continues to operate while Paris burns and a cleric, monks, and a judge are hanged. The grotesque bare-bottomed figure wearing the Jacobin cap personifies the working class sans-culotte, the most radical group within the revolution. He sits on a street lamp and fiddles, like a modern-day Nero, while his city is destroyed. 2 crossed daggers fixed to his belt are still dripping blood. He rests his dirty foot on the head of one of the hanged men. Now, that's kind of rough for a caricature. But let's think about 2 of the great neoclassical artists that are aware of him, David and Goya.
Oh, sure.
And both of them are making paintings that actually have something to do with these very topics.
So these would have made their way out of London.
Oh, yeah.
And traveled.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the thing is that in other sources, you'll see that, well, we all talk about Goya and David, but we don't talk about this.
Right.
And you can bet that there was way more of that out there than some David painting that's on the wall of the Salon Carré. Mm-hmm. And I just am so blown away about the testicular fortitude of this artist, and also just his anger. And I want for you to think about how intense his disgust with this kind of thing is, and how different is that from today, in terms of, factions and people having their views and what needs to be done away with. If you think that that's not enough.
Whoa.
What was that again, Ann?
Whoa.
Whoa. I need to bring this one to your attention.
Oh, boy.
This is pretty rugged. I'm not going to inflict the whole thing on you, but is it not an arresting image?
Yes.
Okay, and this one is also from 1793. What do you see?
Oh, golly. Okay, so this, Jesus.
First of all, let's say you soften your gaze and you can't quite see. Don't squint. Just relax, because I know you don't have your reading glasses on. And tell me just in terms of the composition, how does that look?
Well,
kind of elegant, isn't it?
Well, it is sort of elegant. It's an interesting way to incorporate the narrative text.
Did you happen
There's
to
this
notice?
sort of S-curve serpentine thing.
In fact, I just realized if you overmapped it, I bet you could put the golden mean on there.
Oh, yeah, I think you could.
There you could, the Fibonacci, yeah.
Sure you could.
It's really very elegant, but it's also very hand-colored, and so it's arresting in its talk.
I mean, I'd be curious to see it in the black and white too.
I don't have that.
I know. Well, all right, okay. I'll take one up.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a very extreme close-up view of the platform in the middle of the square where somebody has been beheaded with the guillotine. I assume this is the king.
It is.
Okay. So you see that his head is dropped to the platform and the blood is dripping over the side, but it's also swirling up and around the guillotine, and it contains a bunch of text.
Yeah, almost like the blood
is like
is
a thought bubble.
Yeah, it is really exquisite. And so, as you say, it looks almost like it could be a speech bubble, and that's well pointed out, because the title of this one is "The Blood of the Murdered Crying for Vengeance."
Oh.
So the head of Louis XVI, the portrait that lies at the foot of the guillotine in the corner of the scaffold, are forming the base of this design, and you can literally see that the blade has dropped. The guillotine is realistically drawn on the body of the king, hands tied, lies on the low platform behind the machine. His legs are being cut off by the left margin. I think in another way that's almost violent too, just kind of sausaging him. The blade and head drip with blood, which ascends in a broad crimson swirl across the design, expanding into a cloud of smoke. And as it rises, on this is etched, I'm just going to give you a couple sentences of it. "Whither, oh whither shall my blood ascend for justice? My throne is seized on by my murderers. My brothers are driven into exile. My unhappy wife and innocent infants are shut up in the horrors of a dungeon, while robbers and assassins are sheathing their daggers in the bowels of my country. Ah, ruined, desolated country, dearest object of my heart, whose misery was to me the sharpest pang in death. What will become of thee, O Britons, vicegerents of eternal justice, arbiters of the world? Look down from that height of power to which you are raised, and behold me here, deprived of life and of kingdom. See, here I lie, full of low festering in my own blood, which flies in your august tribunal for justice. By your affection for your own wives and children, rescue mine." He's crying out to the Britons to save his ass.
Wine, wine, wine.
Yeah, well, he's dead now. "By your affection for your own wives and children, rescue mine. By your love of your country, by the blessings of that is true liberty, which you possess, by the virtues which adorn the British crown, by all that is sacred and all that is dear to you, revenge the blood of a monarch most undeservedly butchered, and rescue the kingdom of France from being the prey of violence, usurpation, and cruelty."
Jesus.
I wonder what would happen if a leader in these times, what if a cartoonist did something like this now?
They'd get fired from the newspaper they work for.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the exact representation of that instrument of French refinement, it also says in the print, in assassination. The guillotine is submitted to the gentlemen of the phalanx and other well-wishers to the King and Constitution of Great Britain, and by their devoted servants and command the assassins of the King of France. Basically, Gillray saying, you go, guys. That's some gnarly shit.
Oh, he's a revolutionary.
Oh, Gillray?
Leftist, yeah.
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 I mean, think about what you're saying. First, we saw the sans-culotte, which I think is really shocking and marvelous and wonderful.
Yeah.
But that's...
Compositionally, the sans-culotte one works better.
Oh my God!
for me.
But that's elegant and it's painting. You know, it's got. There's a mathematic. There's almost a French sense of proportion to it.
Sure.
But this was just screaming.
Yeah.
Just and literally, you know, the blood of the murdered crying out for vengeance. But it is the king who's crying out for vengeance. It's not the people that suffered under the king. It's that, you know, they're so mean to me. They were so mean to me. I'm the king. Why were they mean to me? Well, just to lighten the mood. You know, one short year later, he's giving us a sense of something I wanted to. Well, tell him what you see, Miss Ann. This is pretty cute.
Okay, this one happens to be hand colored. This is Following the Fashion. This is from 1794, and it's two female figures, one very short and wide, and one very tall and lanky. And they are in sort of basically the same outfits, and it's demonstrating
the fashion in women's styles at the time. The empire, the empire dress line. Now, obviously, that works well on certain figures and certain not.
Yes,
let's
true.
say that bulky people look terrible in high-waisted things that are cinched in just below the bust.
Yes.
And slender people like Twiggy would look just fine in it because they don't have any figures anyway. But they're wearing the same outfit.
Right.
But I want for you also to think about the fact that you're seeing this neoclassical apparel, and I want for you to think about 1794. Why, that's... If I were to pull up the image of Jacques-Louis David's, you know, Brutus seeing his sons being brought back from their murder that David had painted, the women would all be wearing those dresses.
Oh.
Because Gillray is right on that moment. He understands the fashion of the time.
Yeah.
He understands that this empire style, this Greco-Roman kind of appearance, that is all coming back because we're now going Greco-Roman because, you know, it's the neoclassical. And so we have those kinds of costumes and he's mocking it. It's not the great paniers of before. It's these long skinny dresses and these bonnets and so he is mocking, yes, of course, mocking. But if I want for you to see that in conjunction with the David painting, and you'll see that Gillray is totally on the money. Here's another little ribald image that I think you should enjoy. This one is called National Conveniences, and this was again published by Hannah Humphrey in 1796.
Oh, jeez.
Anne just OG'd, so I want her to explain to you why she just OG'd, because it's pretty wonderful. There's 4 different conveniences, and so Anne will explain to you what those conveniences are,
God.
if I can get there.
Okay.
There we are.
Okay.
So there's your English convenience.
All right, so it's 4 panels in quarters, and each one features a different, looks like nationality, English, Scottish, I assume Irish, and I can't see the bottom. And each person is sitting on the toilet, and it's basically showing you
National conveniences.
how bad it is for some and how okay it is for others.
Okay, so how's it going in England?
He's got a gouty foot.
So the rich man's disease, right?
Right.
He's sitting in his water closet with his powdered wig and his big bulky self. He's probably trying, doing the man going off campus kind of thing.
Right.
Here is the Scottish convenience. Notice he's wearing his tartan, right?
He's scowling at you.
And he's scowling at you, and he's in an outdoor kind of a convenience with pig slop and roosters walking around. And his convenience is the
bucket.
Yeah. And of course, notice that each of these has text on panels, on pieces of paper behind. Here, oh, look, we have a woman here, the French convenience.
No. Little hole in a bench, looks like.
Yet it is called the commode.
The commode.
Oh, much better because it is a thunder pot. But
it looks like a public bench somewhere.
Well, it is because she's outdoors, and you can see that she's, in civilian clothing, and there's the parging is breaking off the brick walls. And then the last one is the Dutch convenience. It's so bitchy.
It is bitchy.
And what does it say?
The lake is the Dutch convenience.
He's hanging his butt over a fence and crapping into a lake.
And the swan is trying to eat it as it drops.
Of course, because nummy.
Yeah.
But so again, he's having his mocking public nonsense. It's actually terrible and wonderful. Okay, then if that was just too shallow for you, then let's go back to something from 1797. The Tree of Liberty must be planted immediately. What do you see here?
Well, I see a mound of decapitated heads in a pile, and rising in the middle is a pole, a pike, upon which is the head of, I'm not sure who that is, Liberty, looks like with a red revolutionary cap.
It has definitely got a revolutionary cap, but these seem like fairly specific faces.
Yeah.
So, like the bonnet rouge, the tricolor cockade, the plain workman's trousers, the sans-culotte, and the Carmagnole, the Tree of Liberty was one of the principal symbols of the French Revolution. And I'm going to just read to you what was contributed by Wikipedia. After France announced to the world in the decree for proclaiming the liberty and sovereignty of all peoples in 1792 that it would be the chief propagator and supporter of liberty, equality, and fraternity across Europe, liberty trees were planted wherever a new insurrection announced French values or whenever French forces occupied a new region. And the British Museum's commentary notes that the tree was not always a literal tree, but sometimes a kind of maypole around which revolutionaries gathered or danced. All right? So it's a liberty tree. After the French invasion of Ireland, the continued support of the revolution by radical Whigs like these must have seemed to Gillray the final straw. This is Gillray, again, righteously indignant. So here he has, I think this might be more so than the chopping off of those heads. This is arguably his most brutal and violent print. And it was what he proudly signs and says that he invented this. He insists in effect that the preservation of the country depends on the violent execution of the best known members of the French Foxite branch of the Whigs, meaning some other party that's not his. Think about how divided that must mean that Britain is at this time, that you need to, hang him up, like a vice president, that this isn't something I approve of, so take it over. Right. So plant a liberty pole. Ugh. Right? At the center of the print, the decapitated head of the Whig leader, Charles James Fox, appears dripping with blood from the top of a pike. He's wearing the bonnet rouge, the freedom hat, with the word Libertas emblazoned across it. At the foot of this Tory version of a liberty tree are more decapitated heads of the Whigs whom Gillray thought were the most dangerous. All of them but one have been identified. In fact, it would all be, those that were mean to somebody, the leader, who's ever in charge. Hang him up, string him up. These are, what you'll see they're portraits.
Yeah.
At the base of a liberty tree.
Right.
And, these are inflammatory things. I think we should all realize that, we've all been on a tender thread for decades, hundreds of years, that it's not free. Freedom isn't free. You got to fight for it. But I don't know. I thought you thought it was just going to be all about silly pictures, but I told you it was going to be rugged.
No, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were right.
But think about what he's taking on here, and it should make us think of the fact that he's actually revered by so many artists after him. And so I wanted to share that kind of thought with you. Here we have Midas transmutating all into gold paper. Now, this is from 1797. It's a wonderful hand-colored etching. And Anne's going to describe what she thinks she's seeing to you.
Thanks. Exactly. All right. So there is a figure who is straddling the Bank of England. He's sort of Gulliver size. So there's little people around his feet looking up at him. And his belly seems to have a lock. It looks like there's gold coins.
Yep.
I can't read what his block says.
So he's transmutating them. So he's spitting out paper. So he's turning gold into paper.
Into paper money.
Yeah.
Is this the beginning of paper money?
In 1797, government spending on public hoarding of coins in response to the French Revolutionary Wars and the Napoleonic Wars meant the UK's gold reserves had been severely reduced.
Oh.
When Parliament passed the Bank Restriction Act in 1797, the public were not happy. The act allowed for the Bank of England to halt the exchange of banknotes for coins. Additionally, they were allowed to produce smaller value banknotes, such as the £1 banknote paper, to make up for the shortfall in gold and cash reserves. This was a time when most of the population weren't using banknotes daily, if at all, and so trust in this paper money hadn't been fully established. You know, like I don't believe in cryptocurrency.
Right,
That is
right.
such bullshit. In the print Midas Transmuting All into Gold paper, Gillray shows the Prime Minister, William Pitt the Younger, as King Midas. In a reversal of the original tale, instead of turning everything he touches into gold, this version of Midas turns everything he touches into paper. Gillray even takes it one step further and shows Midas is eating all of the gold reserves and spewing out banknotes. That's very now.
Yeah.
I think we should get rid of the penny, don't you? They're so annoying. I think we should rename it this or that. We should just change some stuff because I said so. But wait, there's more. Because when I say that there was some real currency to this, I want for you to realize that this image, it gave me an immediate clang response to one of my favorite artists in France in the 1830s. But he wasn't in an etching. He was working in lithography.
Daumier?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And so what I'm bringing up is one of my favorite images of Daumier that was published in La Caricature. It was a comedic journal of the time. And it is called Gargantua. Tell them what they're seeing.
Yeah, well, there's a figure of the king seated on a throne-like, well, it's not really.
Wait a minute, doesn't it look like a throne-like thing with a really big belly that's...
Yeah, big belly is the fat and happy dude. And I think his head is shaped like a pear.
Oh, indeed, to look like the big ass face that is King Philippe.
And his tongue reaches down to the ground, and there are little Lilliputian people climbing up it, I suppose, to pay homage.
Pay taxes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And then as all of those go into his gullet, he shits out his version of legislation. So, you know, the idea of this, it was the French king Gargantua, which was drawing from Rabelais' book on Gargantua. It was written in 1534, just so you know, which was considered obscene, crude, and vulgar. You might say that, well, both of these guys
They're
are
pretty crude and vulgar.
yeah, big-bellied assholes in power. Yeah, pretty much.
But the point of caricature like this is to get attention, right?
Indeed.
So you have to exaggerate /
That's the point of it, right?
Right.
How to get people to notice. Right? Very good. So Gargantua in 1530, he delved into social commentary, searching the meaning of words and how or where they were considered obscene, as well as the many social institutions, their effectiveness. This is the same image. One is French king. One is England, the Bank of England, having to deal with their things, you know, because these are both in such an unfavorable light. Oh, one other thing about this is France, though. All right. So while Gillray just kept cranking the stuff out because he's living in an uncensored world, Daumier, because this drawing portrayed the king in an unfavorable light, Daumier was imprisoned for 6 months at Saint-Pelagic. After his release and return to society, the journal that published Daumier's works, La Caricature, soon after discontinued circulation.
Wait, I'm a little confused because this is 1831, and I thought they'd abolished the monarchy in France. So there's some. So
But remember,
Napoleon-
he's the citizen king.
Okay,
Louis Philippe is the citizen king.
I see.
Yeah, he was elected as the citizen king. He's one of you, but then he's not. And
I
that's,
see.
I'm reminding you of the past, the present, and the future.
Right.
So he comes in and I'm like, oh, this is going to be okay. But then he
Why
turns.
did they call him king? Interesting. So interesting because the revolution was so such a shift in.
And it lasted that long.
Yeah.
Said me holding up fingers about a quarter of an inch
Right.
apart. So that concept of, in France, Daumier is thrown into jail. Gillray can get away with it. But there's something else I want to point out to you about how you try to cancel certain things. And how in my class, I always try to draw a relevance to what's happening today. And so when we think about Gillray and how he can get away with it, or how the French couldn't get away with it, and how things come around and you're introducing currencies that we don't believe in, and this is all garbage, or you're jacking around the economy, we're going to increase tariffs. It'll be good for everybody, but everybody's going to pay 15% more. These kinds of games that are being played at that higher level are the kind of thing that Gilray's going to say, hey, and he's pointing that out too. And we're probably losing so much of that nuance, but I think we still need to know that it's all the same. Mm-hmm. This one I had to throw in. I had to. This is really tiny and hard to read, but I had to throw it in because there's some of the snarkiest writing, and you know how I love snarky writing.
Looks like Blake.
Very good. So, Anne, I had to include this one. I have not seen this written up in any other book, but I've been wanting to put this in since I tore this article out of Art News in 2001.
Okay, Tru is holding an actual fragment of a magazine. It's not a Xerox.
Nope.
It's the actual pages.
Yep. If you knew what a bunch of information slut quarters my family is, yes. And this has been sitting there waiting to be used. It's an article called The Venetian Humbug, written by William Fever in the summer 2001 Art News. And I have been wanting to look at this for a really long time.
Oh my gosh.
Well, what you're going to be looking at is a wonderful print by Gillray, published on the 2nd of November, 1797, and it is called Tizianus Redivivus, or The Seven Wise Men Consulting the New Venetian Oracle, a scene in the Academic Grove, number 1. Now, Anne, when I showed this to you, what did you say?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then you said it
looks like William Blake.
Why, yeah, I think you're right about that. And tell me why you think it looks sort of like William Blake.
Well, it's
because they're contemporaries, you know. Gillray and Blake are contemporaries, and they're both Brits.
Blake is he kind of is an outlier for me, so I'm never sure where
he's a total outlier, just
where
like
he
Glenn.
lands in the chronologies, right? So,
but he was well respected, and he was an incredibly well respected engraver. He was a very successful engraver.
Yeah.
Until he went and started doing, his own thing, which is fun.
Yeah. So the things that I think about are this kind of dream, Book of Job kind of things, and there's always sort of this swirling mass of sky / fire / rainbow / whatever. So there are elements of that in this Gillray.
And it is beautifully hand colored too, is it not?
Yeah.
And then if you notice that there's a whole series of guys, there you go. Oh, look, remember that guy?
Oh, look at that. The Apollo Belvedere.
Very good. Why, that's so classical.
And then there's a monkey peeing on...
Yeah, well, that's important to pee, isn't it?
Wait a minute. Is he peeing on prints?
Books? Or maybe tablets of time, I guess.
Oh, gosh,
yeah.
wow.
And look at all the guys with all of their palettes. Oh, these are academicians, wouldn't you say?
Right.
Oh, my goodness. And there are things bubbling up through the floor and buckets of money going away. And,
this is cacophonous.
oh, my God. There's everything in the world in here. And what were you telling me about speech bubbles? Because they all have these really elegant speech bubbles.
Yeah.
But
they're tough to read.
But this is new. You got to figure out how to...
It is new.
And
the backs of each of their this lineup in the foreground of these academicians, the backs of their canvases all have writing on them to describe different kinds of ideas, I think, Hopnerian truth and
absolutely
Westphalian sublimity. And
look at all of these. I mean, this is a man, this would be the Gillray I would want, to be honest with you. Oh, yeah. Just because here's why. All right, now I love snarky writing. So here we have...
Snarky writing. Oh, sorry, who's the author again?
William Fever.
Okay.
Give me fever. So William Fever says, the title Tizianus Redivivus, or The Seven Wise Men Consulting the New Venetian Oracle, a scene in the Academic Grove, number 1, 1797, is a caricature in itself. Pseudo-classical, fake oracular, quasi-erudite, mock-pedantic, blitheringly long-winded. The final flourish, number 1, is the sting in the tail, leading us to suppose that this could be just the first of several such scenes. Actually, James Gillray had no intention of pursuing the topic further. One splendidly elaborate diatribe was tease enough for the gullible fools of the Royal Academy.
Good Lord.
Had I already said the thing about the Royal Academy being founded?
Yes. Well, I don't know where you said it.
Was that in the part that got cut off?
It might have been.
Well, remembering that the Royal Academy had been established in London in 1768. The French Academy had been around forever. But here we have the Royal
I
Academy.
find that time span fascinating, that the French did it in 16
yeah.
something, 16.
63 is when they got it together.
Right, and it faltered, and then they reestablished it. But then the Brits don't.
And it takes an American, Benjamin West, to get over there to get him on it, which I still think is amazing. So, but the thing is that that there was academies of some sort because Hogarth was just pissed about the academies and the academicians and how there was a bunch of stalwarts too. So bear with me. The topicality.
Well, it's all nationalism, right? So it's all each king is establishing a royal academy of very staunch, very straightforward painter, usually.
It's their
right.
work.
And it's your nationalist ideas of what art should be coming out of your country.
Right. As opposed to the National Endowment for the Arts, which was going to allow more arts to flourish for more kinds of people. Yes. The national machine that was that's why. The canon of art history is neoclassical, Jacques Louis David, and it's everything the Academy says,
But it's fascinating that the people that we most often pay attention to now are the outliers.
Absolutely, because all of modern art has been a rejection of the Academy. And that's why I keep showing you the paintings by Zoffany of the Royal Academicians.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No. I think people need to be reminded.
Back to the William fever.
William fever. So the topicality of satire soon fades, and 200 years later, Titianus redivivus needs explaining. Titianus is... Titian. And the world, Gillray's world of well-informed Londoners, knew in 1795 a certain Miss Provis convinced Benjamin West, the American-born president of the Royal Academy, that she had acquired mysteriously, through her grandfather, the recipe for painting from Titians. To West's cronies, Royal Academicians keen to make their fortunes in brand new old masters, this was priceless information. Mary Ann Provis charged them a joint subscription of 600 guineas, $252,000, to avail themselves of a blend of linseed oil, lake, indigo, and Prussian blue applied to a dark brown ground. Prussian blue wasn't invented until the 18th century, but who cared so long as it did the trick? Now, we'll move on down into the article a little further. Gillray, much like Hogarth, Gillray had a grudge against the Royal Academy. It would not recognize skilled engravers, himself, for example, as proper artists. And yet there they were, all those hacks who operated the portrait trade, imagining themselves superior, aping Titian indeed. Normally, Gillray's caricatures were not complicated. Crude analogy and gross exaggeration spiked with innuendo sufficed, as a rule. But here, given the ideal opportunity to swat the art establishment, he decided to intensify the indignation. Titianus redivivus was to be caricature's knockout riposte to history painting.
Oh, boy.
Well, do you agree so far, just by the visual nature of it?
Yes, success.
The scene is the courtyard of Somerset House. Stars plummet like spent rockets over
Where you can still go, people. Like, this is the thing I love about England and London. Like, they're talking about all these places, and you can still wander into the Royal Academy and go see a show.
And in some respects, that hasn't changed that much.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like, oh, it's just so academic. But they're still there.
They are still
I went
there.
to the Royal Academy to see a wonderful show on
They do good shows.
Lucian Freud.
Yeah.
So things to think about. I mean, that's the thing. This is not dead material.
No.
Human nature keeps doing the same stupid things. We keep closing people out or closing people down or getting pissed about systems that need to be updated. As we go on. The scene is the courtyard of Somerset House. Stars plummet like spent rockets over the Academy's cracked facade, and countless painters have gathered to witness the theatrical spectacle of a double rainbow in full color, from which a phoenix ascends, clutching the recipe. Can you see it all happening there in this image? The phoenix is ascending, clutching the recipe. Mary Ann Provis, dressed as a bedraggled...
For the ground of an old master painting. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, come on, you got to know how.
I know, but...
Come on, there's got to be something exactly like this that we're...
Sure.
Well, the Holy Cross or the True Cross or Elvis's hair or,
Yeah, sure.
like that.
It's like a relic.
Exactly. Mary Ann Provis, dressed as a bedraggled peacock and attended by the three graces in red, green, and yellow, stands on tiptoe, dabbing away at a spectral portrait of poor old Titian, the winged mule of driveling art criticism, its gilt feathers marked... sorry. It's feathers marked puff, sham, puff, squib, puff, abuse. Plunges its muzzle into a chamber pot overflowing with Venetian pigments.
Oh, jeez.
I think he's got a beef. All right, so this is telling you that this has got...
It looks like the Democrat donkey.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much going on here. Okay, no, don't worry. There's more. All right, so I'm moving on a little further ahead. Bear with me.
We got to find this William Fever
Fever,
guy.
he gives me fever. Yeah, and here's a good bit. Hang on a second. It's an old-fashioned thing. It's called paper. Gillray's larger caricatures, such as this one, were priced by his publisher, Mrs. Humphreys, at 5 shillings, $100 plain, 15 shillings colored, $200 more at current prices. And so, although they were posted in Mrs. Humphreys' Bond Street shop window for all to see and enjoy, they were not designed for wide circulation. Now, this is where it's really fascinating.
Wait, how they know? Okay.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Caricature folios could be rented, however, for after-dinner viewing.
What?
And evening's entertainment. To insiders, as well as the general public, they were running commentary on current affairs, scandals especially. In the age before photography and illustrated newspapers, those who featured royalty, politicians, actresses, foreigners, were rendered recognizable through their burlesque appearances in caricature. Prime specimens, such as the randy old Earl of Sandwich, the lovely Duchess of Devonshire, of the shoes, emblematic John Bull, the typical Englishman, thick but sturdy, and mad bovine George III, became the stalwarts and dupes, villains and wantons in the vaudeville of modern life. Yeah, you go to Blockbuster and you rent a video. Excuse me. You go to Netflix and you go and you stream a folio of caricatures.
Whoa.
Is that not cool?
That's amazing.
So Tiziano's ready.
How does he know that? I want to know how he knows that.
Well, he knows this. But that's the other thing I discovered. Like, remember when you were building the subject files at BMA?
Yes.
You're like, we could do war, we do clouds. If we did an entire show of just views of print shop windows, you start thinking about, it goes all the way up to Potemont, and we've got, the fact that people were gathering around, and you'll hear me talk about how everybody was going, ooh, this cool new print by Daumier, and it's Rue Transnonaine, and the king tries to get that stone destroyed. I mean, all of these print shop windows, there's a whole story there that we haven't even gotten to play with. You think about that. Oh, I'm sensing another.
There's a Instagram account called Prints About Prints, and and it often features in the workshop, but he has shown.
But the marketing of it,
print shop windows,
because I think of the Watteau, the Gure Saint signboard. That's for paintings, right? That was what 1710, 1715, and yet print shops, man, that's where the real people are, right?
Right.
Okay, but wait, I'm just going to give you guys a little bit more because I just have to. Tiziano's Revivus crams the entire art world into little more than the space of a portrait miniature. One's attention descends from Titian's whitewashed beard to the overflowing chamber pot to the farting cherubs under the rainbow to the 7 principal figures talking to themselves as they work on their 7 absurdly narrow portraits, diligently applying the Titian lotion. These painters, Rigaud, Smirk, Stothard, Hopner, Westphal, Opie, and Farrington, names one notes pretty well unknown to posterity, have telling legs. In chorus line turns, they anticipate Snow White's 7 dwarfs. Hi-ho, hi-ho. Complacency lulls them as Benjamin West and the publisher-dealer entrepreneurs Macklin and Boydell make their exit, realizing that the preposterous tableau is about to collapse. Look at them there.
Oh,
running away.
With the money.
And you see, really, it's very filmic, is it not?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is an opera right here.
Yeah. The farting cherubs are hilarious.
Oh my goodness! Come on, they're the best. I mean, in fact, it reminds me of the farting rhinoceros in the Callot, the Saint Anthony.
Right.
Farting, and Goya has farting too.
Farting's always funny.
Sopla, yes, to blow. Yay! As well as being Gillray, the engraver's revenge on snob painters, Tiziano's Redivivus is Gillray the caricaturist's declaration of genius. Here he demonstrates is the art to twit high art. and art more vigorous, more intense, more immediate than the stratified, ossified academic genres. He had attended life classes at the academy schools. Indeed, he only resorted to caricature when he failed to make a living as a reproductive engraver, while William Blake, similarly trained and a year his junior, veered off into poetry and visionary spectacle. Gillray went caustic, parodying someone, da-da-da-da-da-da.
Huh.
So things to keep in mind. There's so much here, and there's snarky writing. This is Gillray. This guy has all the right energy, you know, just in terms of, you don't look at how daft poor old Titian is up there. You guys are going.
Well, and I love like that Titian. I mean, it makes sense that he's a painting, but he could be a portrait bust or something. But there he is as it's a canvas.
Yeah, I was going, what the hell?
Uh,
You've destroyed me. And this, even the Apollo Belvedere and all of that, is a riff on the line of beauty by Hogarth.
Well, and her paintbrush is right on his crotch.
Well, of course.
That's hilarious.
Diddle, diddle, diddle. And you're right. It really does look like a democratic donkey that's
it does, doesn't it? And
eating
then
from the chamber. Oh,
over
my
in
God.
the left behind the donkey, there's this rocky outcropping with a Greek temple that's in scaffolding.
In proportioned scaffolding. This is
What's that about? Oh, and our friend Mr. Fever didn't talk about the Apollo Belvedere or the dude peeing on the tablets or the guy coming up from the ground.
Well, I'm extrapolating from this article here.
Wait, I want to know more.
Well, there you go. Art news. Summer 2001. Hard copy, baby.
Wow.
Right from my files.
Oh, my God.
Hear that? It's called paper.
I can't believe you kept it.
Dude, you have no idea.
I've
been cleaning.
Some idea.
But I'm like, I've been waiting to use this forever.
So you found it. Jesus.
I've been wanting to do this for y'all in a while. So we have this spectacular thing from 1797.
Oh.
Just to let you know how he's still giving jokes on the rich and so on and so forth. And just tell them about this little social moire of 1799.
It's just a small image called The Gout, and it is the image of somebody's right foot bare on a pillow, clearly with gout. And there's a demon sort of ravaging it.
Yeah, that would be those uric acids that are building up because the rich man's disease. And gout is one of those symbols for rich people. And so again, just mocking riches and all of those. I had to put this one in because this is so relevant today. My brother got gout. I know somebody else. And when I would go to, what's his name? Dr. Alec at Kalkstein would always say, that looks like a gouty toe to me.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, but I don't have gout, y'all. It's just because I kicked a curb.
Well, and I think it's a real thing. It's not a rich man's disease. It's an actual thing. So.
Yeah, but it also is caused by eating fairly rich foods.
I see.
It's not like peasants aren't running around with gout.
Okay.
But tell me what you're seeing in this image, Ann. Even without reading the title, something's going on. And I want you to really tell them what you think you see.
Good gracious. Okay, so it's the interior, possibly an inn. I'm not sure.
First of all, does this tableau just sort of seem Hogarthy to you?
Yes, it does seem Hogarthy.
And why is that, do you suppose?
It looks like one of those scenes where the entire town is in the pub and mall or whoever is,
or it could even be bedlam.
Yeah,
and everybody's turned out.
Right.
And everybody's got an action. Some kind. It's very stagey and it's got poses. Okay,
but this one's bizarre because there are. Let's see. There's a doctor giving a shot to a woman seated in a chair in the center, but then around them are all these people with flailing appendages, most of which are combinations of animals and their physical form. So there's like cow heads coming out of everything. The hell is happening here?
Well, Mr. Kennedy, let's talk about this.
Jesus.
The name of this print is The Cowpox, or The Wonderful Effects of the New Inoculation.
Oh.
1802.
About vaccines? Oh, criminy.
Yep, because, Edward Jenner had administered that first vaccine for smallpox.
Yeah.
And that was extracted from cowpox.
Oh.
Right? And so people were all really freaked out because, they were going to be, autistic. No, I mean, they were really freaked out because the cartoon was inspired by the controversy over inoculating against the dreaded disease, smallpox. Opponents of vaccination had depicted cases of vaccines developing bovine features, and this is picked up and exaggerated by Gillray. Well, so as Anne has mentioned, you will see that this very scared woman is being inoculated, and it's purported to be a portrait of Dr. Jenner, but maybe not.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch. But then look at, geez, so there's this woman's eye is turning into, there's a cow head poking out of her face. This guy's nose is turning into a cow. Well, there's one coming out of that guy's ear. And this one over here, there's cows coming out of this guy's backside. Not like poop, but like the whole gluteus is turned into a maximal ox. Look at this arm.
Yeah, the arm is crazy.
Isn't that creepy? And she's barfing up a cow. She's getting horns. Oh my God. And this is all being petrified by, look at this. I'm turning it because vaccinations are so bad. How many cases of measles are there now?
Oh, I can't
We're
remember.
into the thousands now,
Yes,
aren't we?
we
Because,
are.
those vaccines, they could really cause some problems. So why would you want to have any vaccinations against, let's say German measles, which if it's contracted in the first trimester of a woman, she'll have almost without a doubt a child who has CP. Oh, I think vaccines are foolish. Let's just be scared of them, shall we? Mm-hmm. Oh, we don't need those. No, that's a bunch of hoo-ha. Look how goofy this is.
Yikes.
But hey, how cogent is this?
Yeah.
Right? So we have all of that. And so there are all kinds of clues. Gillray, like Hogarth, would include all kinds of clues. In this one, there's just not as many as usual. There's a little tip that it's this about cowpox on this kid's sleeve. But there's one other thing that I wanted to point out to you. The painting on the wall depicts the worshipers of the golden calf. That goes back to biblical imagery.
Right.
So it's just knowing your literature just for fun. This is called, what's this called? The handwriting on the wall. What does that refer to? Did you know why we all say the handwriting on the wall?
I feel like it has to do with Belshazzar's feast.
Ooh. Look at you, miss. I wasn't really raised with it, but you did so well. You got a fist bump on that one.
Thank you.
Damn,
I
Skippy.
immediately went to John Martin paintings.
There you fist bump on that one, too. Did y'all know that it comes from Belshazzar's feast? There's actually
I can't remember what the story was behind it, but
now that you've asked. So first of all, tell them what they're seeing in this print called The Handwriting on the Wall.
all right, well, there's a feast, funny enough.
Who's at the feast?
Well, there's a kingly Napoleonish looking
You
figure.
mean Little Boney?
Sitting on a very fancy chair. Mm-hmm. And next to him, I assume, is Josephine drinking some wine.
She's looking pretty big.
She is looking big, bloated.
And then there's got all these plates with things on them.
So they're at a feast. There's wine bottles tipped over, and there's some soldiers standing behind him and some ladies in waiting who are baring their breasts. And then there is the cloud of judgment above their heads.
Oh, and doesn't that look sort of like a god hand?
It sure looks like a Michelangelo god coming down. And then there's some writing. Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin.
Okay, so let's find out. This pretty great. And the hand coloring on this, you got to admit, is pretty spot on. Now, there's a whole aspect about the hand coloring that I had gotten aware of, and then it fell out of my brain, so forgive me. But the handwriting on the wall, Gillray uses the story of the Feast of Belshazzar from the Bible as inspiration. In the biblical story, King Belshazzar is hosting a grand feast when he literally sees writing on the wall, which is supposedly a message from God warning of the upcoming destruction of the city of Babylon. That's why we have the Michelangelo's God hand going. Blah. In Gilray's version, Napoleon is in the role of King Belshazzar. He has just started eating a dessert shaped like St. James Palace when he notices the writing on the wall. In this case, the writing refers to Napoleon's empire being on the brink of collapse. Other British institutions he was intending to consume include the Tower of London and the Bank of England. You see, they're all there on the table.
Oh, I see.
And he's going to gobble them all up as
pieces of architecture.
because he's eating territories.
Gotcha.
As a private institution acting as the government's banker at this time, the Bank of England was both threatened by the economic instability of the Napoleonic Wars and buoyed by its role in raising funds to support Britain's involvement in it. So this is a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of a thing. But the fact that it's Napoleon is, the biblical references, I'm really proud of you. How many of you actually, come on, admit it. Did you know what the writing on the wall really is?
I don't know how I came up with that, quite frankly.
I'm really, I'm gobsmacked.
I know, and I was waxing rhapsodic about the French Revolution. Thank you very much.
I know, I gave you a fist bump on that one too. Here we go, come on.
Yeah.
Boop. See, you guys
That's
didn't see
all
it.
because I want to tell everybody why I knew about the French Revolution, because it's not my specialty at all. I have discovered and have loved listening to The Rest is History, the podcast out of England, and they did a very long and involved series on the French Revolution, which was fascinating.
Isn't nonfiction tasty? You don't need drama. All you got to do is look at history. Criminy. It's all there. Oh, here we have l'Assemblée Nationale, 1804. Now, this looks like another Hogarth. Just give them a little explanation of what this looks like. Let's say the orgy from Marriage à la Mode.
Let's see, somebody's living room, and there are lots of people there. Looks like
rich people.
I can't quite tell who's the centerpiece, honestly.
Looks like the tubby people are the centerpiece.
The woman and the guy in the yellow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's little nuggets, like little pods of activity.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things going on.
This one's hard to read.
But let's just say, I'm only showing this to you because, first of all, it really does look like the orgy, essentially, of Hogarth, and that's in the next comparison slide.
And also a little debauchery, sort of.
Ooh, very good, very good. And the paintings on the wall also invariably lend a little extra information of what is going on in the scene, and that's a conceit he picked up from Hogarth. But Hogarth may have well picked that up from people like Vermeer, because those paintings in the background have always been, ooh, look at little Boney. He's the, see, Anne just got to play with here are the worshipers of the rising sun. Woo! And of course, there's always small text here that you can read, remembering that he's doing this in etching. So he can crank out 650 or 1,000 or 1,700 of these because he's letting the chemicals do the work. If he'd had to engrave this, no, that wouldn't have happened. But this candelabra that is clearly Napoleon.
On the wall. Jesus.
That's just wild. And so, at any rate, so the Assemblée Nationale was called the most talented caricature that has ever appeared, partly due to its admirable likenesses. Here we go. The Prince of Wales paid a large sum of money to have it suppressed and its plate destroyed.
Oh, boy.
And the thing that I love about that is, again, it's a print. You cannot put that genie back in the bottle. If there's more than one pulled, you can't make it go away. So in this case, we could compare that to a Hogarth Marriage à la Mode, but in this case, Marriage à la Mode was about, the marriages of today. That was a social kind of conference. This is a lampoon of actual people in office. And I think it's interesting how Gillray can take these things that Hogarth invented and turn them into the political. Even more dangerous and piss off even more. The most famous print, likely, that Gillray ever made was this one, and it is the Plum Pudding in Danger. This has been probably recreated and parroted several times, and I can see why. You tell our listeners, what have they won, Johnny?
That's a good one. It is two gentlemen at a table carving up the globe territory by territory. Napoleon, I assume, on the right, and on the left, I assume the King of England, whom I'm not sure that is.
Or it could even be the Prime Minister, Pitt.
Oh, okay.
But clearly, they're carving up. And this, I think the reason this is so good is because it's clear, it's clean, and there's not so much that you can't take in. For instance, if you notice that, and I can tell you that this is Pitt, the Prime Minister at the time, notice that Napoleon, Lil Boney, he's using a two-pronged fork.
He's using the carving knife and also his sword, which this guy is not.
Yeah, his sword looks like he's using his sword to cut off. What is he cutting off?
Europe.
Yeah, and he's skewering it with a two-pronged fork.
Yeah.
Right, and he's clearly in the entire French regalia, the big coxcomb, like his size matters kind of feather here. And then you look at Pitt, who is incredible. Look how skinny he is.
Yeah, tall and skinny.
Now, the saying was that Pitt was so tall and so skinny that Gillray said he was almost skinny enough to be a Frenchman.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know, because Gillray obviously didn't enjoy the French, but he was another source. In fact, I believe it was Mr. Mr. Fever, who had said that he was, 6 bottles of port a day guy who managed to stay skinny.
Whoa.
At any rate, I want you to notice what Pitt is stabbing the world with and what part of the world he's skewering.
Well, he's got a 3-pronged fork,
A 3-pronged fork, which is a what?
a trident.
Yes, which is emblematic of whom?
What's his name? The dude in the water.
Yeah, Poseidon guy.
That's him.
Yeah.
Neptune.
Yeah, and he's
skewering the ocean.
The ocean, because what is the strongest thing in the world? It's the British
Navy.
Very good.
Gotcha.
And so Pitt, he's taking the larger part of the world and cutting it in half, and Napoleon's just trying to cut off Europe.
Like, I just want Europe.
Yeah.
Huh.
And so the plum pudding in danger, or state epicures taking un petit souper. So let's have Mr. Fever weigh in on this. Let's see. Moderation is unthinkable in true caricature, pointless where fame and reputation compounded with vanity and ambition strut and waddle. Gilray's Pitt the Younger, a 6 bottles of port a day man and prime minister through the best part of the Napoleonic Wars, was almost skinny enough in Gilray's eyes to be a Frenchman. I think that's hilarious. Now, I don't know if you could even say that in modern scholarship, but hey, if that's what Gilray thought,
Right.
it's what he thought. Yet when he placed him facing Bonaparte in the plum pudding in danger, or state epicures take un petit souper, he made him loftily superior to his adversary. Manic little Boney seizes a slice of Europe. Pitt quietly helps himself to the rest of the global plum pudding. And so it was these kinds of images that Goya and David really did admire, because he got the idea across and he was taking it on. But we don't talk about Gilray. I mean, he gets so much information here, because this all refers to a time when Napoleon is trying to make a kind of, yeah, exactly. The plates have their crests of their state.
Oh,
and
I see.
everything in there. But also, just noticing again look at how beautifully drawn those hands are.
Yeah, the hands are great.
Aren't they beautiful? And
Yeah.
facile. I want you to think back to the whore's last
Right.
shift. And now look at how easily that's done. And you can tell that that's an etched line. Look at this. Even the textures that float about in the atmosphere. He knows what he's doing. Look at even the cloud that billows up behind the globe. It's just so magnificent.
There's a little subtitle here: "The great globe itself and all which it inherit
Is too small
small
to satisfy such insatiable
insatiable
appetites." I'm thinking about people who want all of it, like if they were a real estate mogul
Yeah.
and they want to take over everything. I don't know, maybe they want Canada. And they just want to take over that. Or let's buy Greenland. That's that little Boney there. Or
You
maybe
can
just
see
the little
him
Piccolo.
there with Putin or
Oh,
something.
come on.
Yeah.
It is exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's beautifully drawn. I don't know if anybody can draw that nicely these days. So I needed to throw that out there because there's so much going on there. We could go into how that all goes down to the Battle of Trafalgar and England comes back, but then it leads to the Peninsular Wars and so on and so forth. But let's go on, because I wanted to show one more Gilray that I think really tells us a lot. This one is called The Spanish Bullfight. He'd done this in 1808.
Hello, Goya.
And thank you. He did this in 1808, known with the subtitle, The Corsican Matador in Danger.
Oh, boy.
You see? There you go. Hello, Goya. Now, see, that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
Tell them what they see. Johnny.
You're seeing part of a bull ring. There's a guy being thrown by a bull. He's
What's the
losing his
guy?
hat. That's little Boney. Mm-hmm. And then
Ooh, and someone's getting trampled, too.
you see the wall and the spectators in the upper. Oh, all kinds of people. Look, they're
the
international.
God, there's even
Somebody
China.
from China.
God, the whole world is watching
Whoa.
this. And they're like, look, Alexander the Great.
Oh, gosh.
They're all lined up to watch. Oh, gosh. Look at, hey, that's England. It's got to be England. See,
England
there's
with the trident.
Yep. Oh, my goodness. And they're all watching
Van
Lil
de
Boney.
Brazil. Did that say Van de Brazil?
Could very well.
Wow.
Why not? Wait, what does this one say here? It's nice I'm going to label them for him. Oh, here's Algiers, of
Algiers.
course.
Oh, my gosh.
Of course, because you've got the Muslim and then the Pope, here the bull for excommunicating the Corsican usurper.
Oh, boy.
The papal bull.
Whoa.
Get it? The papal bull.
Whoa.
and there he goes. And then there are these other bulls that are saying.
Yeah, there's some dead bulls there.
There's the Prussian bull beef. There's the Dutch bull beef. There's the Danish bull beef.
Huh.
Wounded bulls bellowing for help. This is all basically Napoleon taking over parts of Europe and so on and so forth.
Huh.
Now,
is this pit here that's on, or the king?
well, it should
There's a crown.
It should tell us what it is, right?
Oh, look, he's peeing on him.
Of course. Ooh, God, right in his face.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
this is Joseph Bonaparte.
Oh, that's right, because he's trying to appoint his cousin to be the king of Spain, and then it goes sideways, and the French don't. Yeah, it goes sideways, and this is what leads to the Peninsular War. The things that go with this are there's so much here, but without saying too much, let's think about this. I'm just showing you plate number 21 from Goya's Tauromaquia, which is the dreadful events in the front rows of the ring at Madrid and the death of the mayor of Torreon. You immediately thought that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this is from 1816.
Oh, shoot.
And this is the same war.
Oh.
And this is basically showing us
Gillray's
how it's
10 years ahead.
Yeah. Yes. And that it tells us how and why and where Goya came from. But, he
this is like Hayter and Pollock, right?
Yes. Isn't that wonderful?
I'll get to that soon.
So thinking about how we haven't paid enough attention to this guy and thinking about how Goya owned Callot. This guy knows Hogarth. Hogarth knew, they see their forebears in this print world that I think we just get all hung up on, people dabbing oil paint on some canvas.
Wait, so there's an inventory of Goya's collection that
Goya
could check for Gillray.
I don't know, but I mean, he had to have known him.
Right.
Right? Because we know that he knew Callot. I can't imagine that he didn't know of Gillray.
Right.
How could he not?
Right.
His stuff's getting around. So with all of that said, there's only 650, and I couldn't choose. I just needed to find some that I could bitch slap the current situation here in the United States. But I'm also really excited about Hannah Humphreys having her own print shop.
I know, that's pretty sweet.
Right? And I wanted to let you know that she'd started in St. James Street, and then she opened in another area. And eventually, when they moved to St. James Street in 1797, they were in the heart of fashionable London and well-placed to lure in passing nobility and gentry. The exclusive gentlemen clubs of Brooks and Boodles and Whites, frequented by the likes of, Mr. Sandwich and all of those, were just up the street. So they're in a really great area. And get this. Go ahead. Can you see that? Why don't you read them that? Because they're sick of my voice. According to the contemporary accounts.
According to the contemporary accounts, her shop was well appointed inside with mahogany counters and showcases. She also loaned out portfolios for the evening. The rooms above the shop were where she lived with Gillray, who had been her lodger and close friend, as well as her principal artist since 1793, which fueled much speculation that their relationship was more than purely commercial.
Mm-hmm. But now they've moved uptown, and he's in charge of his own plates. She's publishing his stuff. Well, let's not get married, whatever. So I also wanted you to know that as I had mentioned, his eyesight was failing starting in about 1806. And he said that Gillray's farcical suicide attempt, he had incredible depression because he couldn't see. He started to drink a lot. Then he got gout and so on. And he had produced his last print in 1809. Think about it. He'd lost his purpose. He can't see. What's he going to do? He tried to throw himself from the attic window. The window, however, had iron bars across it, and Gillray got his head jammed. He was spotted by a member of White's Club and extricated, looking for all the world like one of his own cruel caricatures,
says Amanda Flynn.
And again, it reminded you of, didn't you say, the basket of...
Oh, Virgil?
Yes, it's like he's almost hoisted on his own petard. He's stuck with his head out the window. Right. It's almost like...
the Lucas van Leyden.
Yeah. So I'm showing you some of the prints from the In Slippy Weather. It's a delightful print that tells us how successful he is. You can see, these are all of his prints in the windows of Hannah Humphreys, and their business is booming, except that
I'd be tempted to have that one as opposed to the Royal Academy one.
I would take that, sure. And other things that I couldn't talk about, well, we're not going to talk about them because there's only 650 of them. Sure, hell, of course I'd take in Slippy Weather. But I don't think I could afford it.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, okay, now we get to start looking because remember, we still have to get me a little baby callow.
Yeah,
too.
we need a callow too.
I bet you we could. I already have a Gillray in my kitchen.
Oh.
But even though it's a little hurt, but I'm thinking about how relevant these print folk can be to their own time. Think about what people are doing now. Think about what if Gillray was alive right now? What would Big Donnie do to him? You know?
Silence him.
Yeah. You know, it's just,
Deport him to Algiers or something.
Exactly. So just food for thought, y'all. I thank you for being patient with me. And Dan, thank you for being patient with me. Wasn't that kind of fun?
Yes, it reminds me of when we did Milan, because my reference point was only the Sudarium.
Right.
And there was so much wonderful other stuff on the periphery. And
so that, you know, the thing that everybody knows, and as well they should, is this, you know, the plum pudding of Europe being divvied up. But, you know, Slippy Weather tells us that's a social piece right there. Oh, my God, the Spanish bullfight? Yeah. Come on, man. Yeah. There's a lot there. And being able to see, you know, the influences that he draws from, the whole thing with vaccination. There's so much. There were so many things, and I kind of, as always, I get but they got to see. Okay, no. Okay.
Edit.
Right. But I had to finally use my article from 2001.
Oh, my God.
Rally. It wouldn't have worked the same. I wouldn't have found it online. Isn't that great?
That is great.
You got to love good
We got to
snark.
find him.
Mr. Fever. It's spelled the right way, too. Well, that's it for me, Miss Ann. I think next time I don't think we're going to talk about Rollinson and Crookshank. I think we need to get going on the Venetians so we can talk about Piranesi after, you know, Tiepolo and Canaletto and those kiddos. Right. But then we got to talk about Mr. P and his, you know, 2000 etchings and how he changes. We got to get out of the Enlightenment someday, but I hope you guys have been a little bit enlightened.
I sure have. It's been really bizarre and fascinating and really wonderful to get to know him. So thank you.
And yay, Hannah Humphreys, right?
Right. I'm really intrigued by her.
I want to do more with the print shop windows and the fact, I mean, think about it. She was smart enough to have it just down the street from the gentlemen's clubs.
Yeah.
It's like, come on in, you gotta look at this. And do you want to, hey, I'll rent a portfolio of caricatures for you, right? Come on over, let's look at the portfolio of caricatures.
Brilliant. That's amazing.
Yeah. And by the way, if you get vaccines, you probably won't have cows growing out of your arm.
Probably not.
Maybe not.
No. Pretty sure. All right. Well, thank you, Tru.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for tolerating me. Bye, y'all.
All right. See ya. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to this History of Prints episode with our bud, Tru. Thanks to Tru for doing an incredible amount of research for every one of these episodes. I don't know if I've ever said this out loud, but this was supposed to be much less involved, and Tru takes a deep dive every time we decide on which artist to talk about. So a big thank you to Tru. I think it's super useful, and I hope you guys are loving them. I know this one's long, and I apologize. Thanks also to Dan Fury of Extension Audio for wrangling the sound on this one. It's always a challenge. Thank you, Dan. And also thanks to Michael Diamond for use of his original music, and Skip Barnhart and Lee Turner for the studio sounds they sent that I use at the top and bottom of each episode. The images are all over at platemarkpodcast.com. And I guess that's it. We'll see you next time.